renewed interest because it has been 6 years since Jeffrey Epstein was arrested, around 6 years since his death, and there are still more questions that remain, still more answers that people are looking for. What do you make of the fact that this is an issue that's not going away? This is a story that's not only not going away, but gaining even more traction.
Yes, Brittany, I have to tell you, I'm just amazed at the level of interest in this particular case now. I think it is even greater, certainly, than it was at the time of his arrest. And then, of course, the subsequent death behind bars in New York. There was, of course, interest at the time, but the level of interest now is as red hot as, I mean, it's almost unbelievable. And a lot, of course, has to do with the dynamic now of President Trump and questions about the extent of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. But more so than that, we're finally at a point now where there's so much interest, not only among the American public and Donald Trump's MAGA base, who, of course, have believed in conspiracy theories related to this story for years and years. But we are finally getting to the point, I hope, of actually getting full transparency on the Epstein files, the files that the FBI has. We're talking about 300 gigabytes. We're talking about material that could easily fill, a couple 100,000 pages of documents. Plus, of course, there's additional physical evidence and videotapes that the government is sitting on. And the level of interest is, I thought about this the other day. Had they just released the documents as they had promised, as his Attorney General Pam Bondi had promised months ago after she invited those conservative influencers to the White House and gave them the white binders that said phase 1 of the Epstein documents, along with the fact that they were going to release a phase 2 down the road, which is where we're at now. The fact that over 4th of July weekend that they came out with a 2-page memo and basically said Epstein committed suicide, there's no blackmail, there's no client list, and it doesn't warrant the release of any material, that has just sent people through the roof in terms of how upset they are, particularly among his base, among the public, and of course, I'm in touch with some of his victims. This whole thing is traumatizing. They want to get to the bottom of all this. And so they want to see, along with me and the American public, they want to see the full disclosure of all the documents.
And I think that July 7th memo from the DOJ was so surprising because Pam Bondi, the Attorney General herself, said earlier in the year, I have that client list sitting right on my desk. Now they're saying there's no client list. Essentially, there's nothing left to see here. But there's a lot left to see, according to most of the American public, and we want to see it. That's what people are saying from both parties, Americans from all corners of this country. And in your book in 2020, this is what you wrote. These are the questions that you still had 5 years ago. How the sex trafficking enterprise operated, who was involved, and what evidence his alleged surveillance apparatus captured. Because you write that victims testified and said that he was taping everything in his properties. So are we any closer to getting any of these questions answered? I mean, what are the big questions you still have?
Well, I just wrote this past week an essay in the New York Times opinion section on I expanded it to 9 questions about what may be in the Epstein files. And we can start off with, with the video. I think that while the government has acknowledged that there's 10,000 tapes of child abuse, that doesn't answer the question of what happened to the secret surveillance video systems that Jeffrey Epstein had in all of his homes. What's interesting, and it's ironic, that before he was investigated by Palm Beach police at his mansion there, beginning in 2005, Jeffrey Epstein had asked the Palm Beach police to help him install secret surveillance video cameras in his home. He said that he feared that some of his staff might be stealing from him. And so some officers from the Palm Beach police came over and worked with his technician to install video cameras. And these video cameras were actually used by Jeffrey Epstein to record interactions he had with victims, but more importantly, the possibility that those video cameras captured interactions between wealthy friends of his and some of his victims. And this same operation took place not only in Palm Beach, it took place at his mansion on the Upper East Side of New York. It took place at Little St. James, his island in the Virgin Islands. It took place at his Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. And it also took place at his apartment that he had in Paris. So there was video of interactions between Jeffrey Epstein and these young women and children, but also some of the other men that he had entertained. And I want to know what happened to all those videotapes. We know in one of the evidence listings that there's an evidence listing for 70 CDs. Now, what do those CDs show?